Hello, this is Bonnie Orms in NUR 100 instruction for Chapter 42, Rehabilitation and Restorative Nursing. I am looking down at the book. This is coming straight from the book. You do have the PowerPoints readily available. So I'm just simply going to hit some highlights. Thank you for your flexibility and patience during this time. So let's begin. The first key point you need to understand is disability. Many disabilities are things that you cannot see. So some people are walking around with disabilities that most lay persons are completely unaware of. To define disability, it is any lost, absent, or impaired physical or mental function. The causes are acute or chronic. An acute problem has a short course. Recovery is complete. And an example of a fracture is an acute problem. A chronic problem, it has a long course, so anything greater than 6 months. The problem can be controlled, not cured, with treatment. Diabetes and arthritis are examples of chronic health problems. A lot of individuals today have, they suffer from back pain and especially like a sciatic nerve problem. So those are things that you cannot see when you visually see a person out into the public. And I'm pretty sure that we've all kind of been guilty of, seeing an individual using one of the motorized carts at the grocery store, for example, and then you kind of thought in your head, well, there doesn't seem to be anything wrong with her. Why is she using that cart when somebody with a disability that we can see should be using it? So my point behind that is, we don't really truly know if she has had low back problems. Maybe she had suffered a stroke or something to that effect, and she has weakness on one side more so than the other. Unless we get to know a person and know their health history, we're just not going to be aware of that. So what I'm asking is that you just be cognizant of things like that. And basically the goal of healthcare is to prevent and reduce the degree of disability. By doing so, we bring in rehabilitation, which is the process of restoring an individual in hopes that we can restore them to 100%. But many of the times be aware that it is getting the individual to their best possible level. So maybe that's 75%, maybe that's 60%. They may not get to 100%, but we just want them to function to the best of their ability. So that's the point behind rehabilitation. So again, restoring the individual to their highest potential possible, whether that be physical, psychological, social, and economic function. Many nursing center residents have physical disabilities. Those could be caused by, as I previously mentioned, strokes, fractures, such as hip fracture is a big one, maybe amputations or injuries. They need to regain their function and adjust to long-term disability. Often these residents return home. So many of the individuals in long-term care go home. Not all of them are there full-time. What is restorative nursing? Some individuals who are weak, who have had illness, their muscles may have been wasted as a result. So we just want to get them back to their best possible function in restorative nursing. And that is care that helps that individual get back to very near to what they once were prior to the illness or injury. Help them build strength and gain independence. For progressive illnesses, the person becomes more disabled. Restorative nursing programs help maintain the highest level of function and prevent unnecessary decline in function. So we don't want them to get any worse than what they were. So you can refer to box 42-1, and that'll give you some examples of common health problems that require some restoration. So restorative aid. So this could be devices used to help an individual get to their best possible function. And oftentimes it's a nursing assistant that could help get them to their best possible function. Example of devices would be weighted utensils. So if I've had a stroke, I may need, depending on where I'm at in my recovery, I may need weighted forks, spoons, and knives to eat food. But granted, it's not going to be at the pace I had once was. It might be a little bit slower, but it's just to regain that function from the plate to the mouth. So rehabilitation in the whole person. Health problem has physical, psychological, and social effects. Suppose an illness had left you paralyzed from the waist down. Maybe you're in denial about that. Maybe you're fearful because you're unsure what the future is going to hold. I think right now we can relate simply because we're all cooped up at home and quarantined related to the COVID-19 pandemic that is, that we're currently experiencing even as we speak. So we must adjust physically, psychologically, socially, as well as economically. Some of our peers who have worked in retail industry, restaurant industry, bars, what have you, they were fired last week. So they don't know what the future holds. We just have to take it day by day. Rehabilitation takes longer in older individuals than it does someone younger. So just realize that physical aspect. With any disability that could affect our elimination. So if I'm a newly paralyzed person, I'm not going to have the sensation of when I need to have a bowel movement or urinate. So just be mindful of that. I may not be able to provide self-care. So now I have to bring myself, up until yesterday, for instance, maybe I was walking around talking. I could go to the shower whenever I wanted to. I could take myself to the restroom. So now I'm completely reliant on someone else. So just be compassionate and put yourself in those individuals' position and think, how would that make you feel? So when they hit the call light and it takes someone 10 or 15 minutes to get there, maybe they don't have the ability to hold it any longer and they soil themselves. How does that person feel at that moment? They're probably humiliated. Their pride is gone. I've taken away their independence. Now I'm completely relying on someone else. And they're so busy tending to other people, I feel like I'm not important enough because they're busy with other people. So just be mindful of that. So with self-care, again, the goal of rehabilitation or restorative is to provide skills for those individuals to be able to care for themselves as much as feasible possibly. I'm going to have, if I'm in a wheelchair, I need to learn how to safely transfer from my bed to the wheelchair, to be able to safely take a shower on my own. So all this is going to take time. Maybe the individual's mad, and I've kind of mentioned in previous lessons that maybe you personally have not done something to the individual, but they're always mean and nasty to you. Well, it's basically transference. So they're taking out their frustration on the first person they see. So please, as you're working in long-term care, don't take offense to that. If a person just needs time to be alone or what have you, provide that to them, but still be loving and caring towards them. Still be compassionate, and my best suggestion is to treat them as though you would want to be treated. Care for your patients just as you would as you're caring for a grandparent or a family member. They deserve that more than anything in this world. I do kind of want to mention economic aspects. So some individuals with disability can eventually return to their job. They may not have the same function that they had. They may not be in the same role, but at least they do have the opportunity to get back into gainful employment. So who is the rehabilitation team? So there's a physician that's in charge of it. There's typically the family, a physician, a nursing team, and other health team members, maybe occupational therapy, maybe speech therapy, definitely physical therapy in most times. They typically meet, it just depends on location. So UC, it was typically every day at 11. Some facilities, it's every Tuesday and Thursday at certain times. So if you have an opportunity to sit in on those meetings as a student, I encourage you to do so. That's where they discuss every patient, and then they discuss their care and see what's best for them. So your role is, as a nursing assistant, is to prevent decline in function for those particular residents. So we don't want them to decline further. A lot of times the dietitian is going to be asking you what they're eating, and this is when it's important to understand input and output, because protein is something big. If they're muscle wasting and they're losing protein, they're just not going to recover like they should. So OBRA also has requirements that nursing centers provide rehabilitation services. If it's not provided by center staff, services obtained from another source. So some facilities are so small that they don't have a lot of people on staff, so they will bring those in for individuals if needed, or they're probably not a candidate for that service for that particular facility. The center must provide services required by a person's comprehensive care plan. A person requires physical therapy, it must be provided. If they need occupational therapy, speech therapy, or anything to that effect, it must be provided. So thank you for listening to this lecture on Chapter 42. I am going to move on to Chapter 43, Assisted Living. So assisted living is just that. It's a housing option for older adults who need help with activities of daily living, but they don't quite want to move to a long-term care facility. They still want to have their independence. So I may need help with dressing in the morning. I may need help with meals. I may need prompting to when to take my medication. I may need someone to help with filling out my like a pill case. So if I have this pill at 9 a.m., I have one at lunch, and I have one at dinner. We have these assisted living facilities where we can set that up for them. We can go in and do some light housekeeping and then be available if they need us, but they don't require 24-hour care. The beauty of assisted living facilities is I still have this moderate amount of help, but I can come and go as needed. It's only when I get to the point to where I cannot come and go safely that I may need to transition to a long-term care. So basically, assisted living is they still remain in a home-like setting. They are offered 2 to 3 meals per day. They have help with assisted living, such as bathing, dressing, grooming, toileting, eating, and walking. They have housekeeping and maintenance. Linens and personal laundry are taken care of. You also have 24-hour security and 24-hour emergency communication system in the event of emergency. And the very first thing I'm thinking of would be a fall. So there is technically 24-hour supervision, even though I'm in my own apartment per se. They offer wellness and exercise programs, medication management, as I mentioned. They can help with shopping, banking, and money management. And then there are social opportunities, educational opportunities, recreational opportunities, as well as spiritual-led opportunities in the assisted living facilities. People choose assisted living for many reasons. People living longer and individuals are older than ever before. Men and women lose their life partners through death or divorce. Some may remarry. Others do not. Some persons have never married. Some older persons enjoy being independent, but do not want to become burdens on their family. And that's perfectly fine. Some residents prefer to live alone, and oftentimes there are some residents who don't have family nearby. they still have resident rights. They have the right and they have the same rights and liberties as any U.S. citizen. They gain special rights under state laws and rules. If a person is unable to exercise his or her rights, family members, legal representatives, or an ombudsman act on the person's behalf to advocate for them. Staff requirements are going to vary depending upon state, but they still have a governing body. For example, a worker might serve meals, clean apartments, and assist with personal care of residents. Sometimes these staff are not permitted to help with medication. It all depends on the facility. So as I mentioned, they have meals, so it's all governed very similar to a long-term care facility. They can help with laundry services. Individuals, they do offer recreational activities. I know many times they have these buses come in to take residents to Kroger, for instance, a couple times, maybe on Mondays, for example. So the bus would come, pick them up and take them there, and they'll help them get their groceries as needed. Sometimes they go to meals at different restaurants, barring the COVID-19 situation. Sometimes they'll go to casinos or parks, and just to keep things, together as a group, and they can still get out and enjoy the world. Special services and safety needs. So not everyone may require the need for wheelchair access, but some of them do, and they are to provide that. And then the unfortunate portion of this is some residents require transfer, discharge, and eviction. So simply, if you lose your medical services and you cannot afford to pay, you obviously can't stay there. Everyone has a revenue, and they just don't offer this for free, unfortunately. In the assisted living, if you can no longer meet your own health needs, you may consider moving to a long-term care facility. If a person fails to pay for services as agreed upon, then they cannot stay. Person wants to transfer. Now, I want to get back to that. They're not going to evict you and put you on the street. They may have to move you in the home of a family member, but they're going to make sure that that person is safe. If they become a ward of the state, then they will find long-term care placement for them if family is not available. So I just don't want you to think that we're putting elderly in the street. Oftentimes facilities close, and they have to ensure housing for the residents that they have. If a person wants to transfer for personal needs, they have that right. And then if an individual fails to comply with the assisted living facilities rules, for instance, smoking, if somebody insists on smoking in their apartment, it becomes a health hazard for others. The risk for a fire hazard is greater, so they'll try to relocate that individual. And then, of course, the quality of life. So just always remember that assisted living residents have rights. Federal and state laws protect their rights as citizens. State laws usually protect the rights listed in box 43-3. People choose assisted living for many reasons. Most residents need some help, but they want to live independently and dignity and respect. You can help them by following their service plans. Assist them as needed in allowing much privacy and personal choice as possible. So that concludes chapter 42 and 43. Thank you.